claim to be Christians or wish to view religious beliefs throughout this whole process continually mentioned that they would like to educate or warn or tell others their religious beliefs. And that's my biggest concern. The very fact that someone places themselves on a higher plane and looks down at someone else, that in and itself is discrimination.
Through this whole process, we received a lot of emails from people, and some of those from people identifying themselves as Christians with some pretty hateful beliefs, and kind of implying that it's okay to that it's their job to make people view things their way.
There is a great tendency in this country to privatize religion, to make it something that we cannot bring into the sphere of our everyday lives. We cannot discuss it for fear that we might offend.
It certainly is not right to have laws that force anyone to have to violate their religious beliefs, and laws that create a protected class of citizens that are superior to the rights of other citizens while masquerading as a law that will make rights more equal.
As an employer, I also have an absolute God-given right to associate with whomever I please. It is not the purview of the government, of any government, whether it be federal, state, or local, to tell me that I have to allow someone to ride my bicycle if I don't want them to ride my bicycle.
When a forerunner of this ordinance was passed in San Francisco, it was our church that was taken to court because they had to dismiss an organist. The church won because it was declared to be unconstitutional not to exempt churches. Our church was firebombed with the pastor and his family inside because there are people who do not want to see anyone dare say, "You're wrong."
If you make everything a crime, then everyone's a criminal. Please quit regulating us to death.
These people that are standing up and are for this ordinance, if you constantly listen to them, they're all saying, "I work in Ogden, I work in Ogden, I work in Ogden." They all have jobs here in Ogden. What was just mentioned, the Megaplex, Teleperformance, they've all made provisions to allow them to work here where they can't discriminate against them, which is the rightful way to do it.
And so I would just ask that the city council consider doing nothing. It's often the right thing to do. It's been discussed in several bills here at the state level, and I think it would be the right thing to do to allow companies and individuals to fight this battle the way it's always been fought, in the arena of ideas, not in law.
And that's my argument, is that you do not have that power. Yes, you may vote for this ordinance, but then it becomes an unlawful ordinance.
If we were talking about people not having the right to vote or being unequal under the eyes of the law and the eyes of the government, that's one thing. But when we get over in this area of how private individuals treat private individuals, as long as there's no harm going, then I think that's not the role of the government.
But with that, I've seen a lot of religious beliefs that I don't think are very Christian.
In your opinion, in regards to you drafting this ordinance, why is the Constitution and the First Amendment itself not enough in the situation of these particular ordinances?
When I first was asked to look at this concern over religious expressions, I kind of thought, well, the First Amendment's going to take care of it. I'll go do the research to confirm my opinion. And when I did the research, it was anything but. I found that when you have a non-discrimination ordinance that comes up against a religious expression, then the few cases that have gone to court or are going to court, typically the religious expression loses. Without this protection, somebody could, for example, say, well, I think I've been discriminated against. I didn't get the promotion, and I know he has a cross on the wall. And I'd like to bring that in as evidence that perhaps he's using his religious beliefs to discriminate against me in the promotion. And if we don't have this protection, then that would be totally broken.
We've heard diversity of opinion here in dramatic form, but I think we've had solidarity on at least one side of this, which is everybody seems to be opposed to the idea of discrimination. I've not heard one person from either side say that they believe discrimination is appropriate. So we all agree on that, and it's a matter of delivery then from there. And so I think letting people know that they have the right to express their religious views without being fined by the government is absolutely critical. Everybody said here that it's in the Constitution we have that right. Well, then let's make it express so that people know that relative to housing and relative to employment, that right still exists without a fine from the city. We also want to make sure that we do all that we can so that this ordinance doesn't become a sword instead of a shield. So somebody uses the ordinance to then go after people for whatever other reason. So let's say that somebody goes in for a job interview and they don't get that job. And let's say that person notices that the other individual is wearing, as was mentioned, a cross or a CTR ring. And they didn't get the job. Well, they can, by virtue of this ordinance, go in and say, and so if they, during that interview, let that person know that they happen to be homosexual and don't get the job, then they could go and file with the city and say, I was discriminated upon. I saw that person have the cross or the CTR ring, and I'm certain that they did that because of it. Once again, what that does is create taxpayer expense. So we have to have a hearing officer, which we'd most likely hire, to hear and review those cases, which is a problem. We've changed this ordinance from being a defense for people who are having real discrimination to being able to be used as a sword to go after people for whatever reason they choose if they can justify it. The other thing that it can do, as was mentioned, is you could see how that scenario could create a real chilling effect on people having the ability to express their religious beliefs. And all of a sudden people would feel like they couldn't wear a cross or a CTR ring or whatever, or have any kind of religious speech or expression in any way, because that could cause them or their employer to receive a fine by the city. So I hope that provides some clarity as to where I'm at on these issues, and I think with the ordinance passed with those provisions in them, I'm comfortable with, and I will sign that administrative order, and I will sign the ordinance. In absence of those, I cannot. I already swore that I would not do so, and I don't feel like I have any discretion but to insist that those points are in this ordinance.
Councilmember Wicks? Aye. Councilmember Blair?
Aye.
Councilmember Stevens?
No.
Councilmember Stevenson?
No.
Councilmember Van Hoosier?
Aye.
Vice Chair Garner?
No.
Chair Goffner?
That one passes.